Welcome to Multiversal Studios. This video will be discussing One Piece and my theory on Luffy's Gear 5th transformation. Now before we dive in, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Also, if you're not up to date on the anime, there might be a few spoilers ahead. So for those of you who have been following One Piece, know that Luffy's gear transformations are probably the most exciting moments in anime history. The greatest things about these transformations is that they always appear at the moment you least expect it, and in the midst of an intensive battle. For example, when we all saw Luffy use 4th gear for the very first time, it was incredible. Kaido is one of the 4 emperors of the sea, and known to be the world's strongest creature. So will Luffy unlock Gear 5th in a fight against Kaido and defeat him? Well, before we take a look at Gear 5th, I think we first need to take a look and analyse Luffy's other gear transformations.
Gear 2nd.
Gear 2nd is a technique first shown to us against Blueno, an assassin from CP9. This is a technique which Luffy uses to increase the blood flow drastically in his body, which provides his body with extra oxygen and nutrients. Now, this can only be managed by Luffy, as Luffy's rubber organs and blood vessels can expand and handle the pressure, making Luffy much stronger and faster in battle. Now, this technique is all based around Luffy's ability to manipulate his blood flow.
Gear 3rd.
Gear 3rd was first used against Rob Lucci. This technique is very slow, however incredibly powerful, and is often used against giant opponents. The reason Gear 3rd is so special is that Luffy bites into his thumb joint and blows directly into his bones, and is able to move that air around his body at will. And unlike Gear 2nd, this technique is all based around bones.
Gear 4th.
Gear 4th was first seen against Doflamingo in Dressrosa, an epic transformation aesthetically as well as physically. Luffy called this technique Bounce Man. Activating it is very similar to 3rd gear. However, instead of biting into his thumb, Luffy first coats his arm in haki and bites into his forearm, blowing air into his muscles. This form is just explosive power in a nutshell, without sacrificing any of his speed. This is Luffy's latest form, and it makes up for Gear 2nd's lack of power and Gear 3rd's lack of speed. He can also deliver devastating long-range attacks, and also has 2 variants of Gear 4th, known as Tank Man and Snake Man. So in summary, this form is a beast. With the one drawback being how long Luffy can sustain the form. Now, Gear 4th is all dependent on Luffy's use of muscle.
Gear 5th.
Now we can clearly see the pattern of gear transformations, which was blood, bones and muscle. So my theory is that Gear 5th will be based around skin, as there's physically nothing else it could be. This will be Luffy's final and most powerful transformation. As we have already seen from Gear 4, it incorporated many of the features from the previous transformations. However, I think Gear 5 will be completely different, as in, instead of taking an offensive form, I think Gear 5 will be entirely about defense. My theory is based on 2 forms Gear 5th will take, one being called GIANTMAN. Now, Luffy will activate this by making an indent in his skin and blowing air into the center of his body, and from there transferring the air equally throughout his body, including his arms, legs and chest, until he's a giant. Now this could very well turn into a sumo form, as Luffy has taken a certain admiration for them. His initial body will be 4 times its size and taller than Kaido himself. However, Luffy's head and his important organs will all remain the same size in order to protect himself from any physical attacks, cushioned by his giant balloon body. I believe this form will have coil-like appendages, almost like Bellamy. This is so Luffy's punches give more of an impact, as well as his legs, which allow him to jump really far, which will increase his speed even though he's so big. And unlike his other forms, this transformation won't be as elastic. so Luffy will start absorbing attacks instead of reflecting them. His body will be coated in haki as usual, however only in key parts of his body, which will be the offensive areas, including his arms and legs. However this time, Luffy's haki will have a yellowy tinge, symbolizing Luffy's mastery of the advanced haki technique which they call Ryu in Wano Kuni. Now, a massive indicator from his previous gears is the hot steam and fire symbols produced in his transformations. I believe Luffy will use the steam and the air inside him to launch heated air projectiles, embedded with the new haki technique he's just learning. This is a type of haki that is emitted and enters a body and destroys it from the inside out. I think this will also be very symbolic of his brother Ace, who had the Flame Devil Fruit. And I think that when Tama sees the fiery style abilities Luffy uses, she will also be reminded of Ace. Also, because Luffy has so much heat and steam inside him, the heat will naturally rise. So Luffy will be as light as a feather, almost like he's walking on the moon. This form will be the ultimate defense, and when faced against Kaido, the ultimate offensive opponent, I think this form will be perfect. The second form will be called KITEMAN. This technique is almost like a secondary state to GIANTMAN, like SNAKEMAN is for BOUNCEMAN. Now, KITEMAN will be activated in a very similar way to GIANTMAN, however adding very little air compared to GIANTMAN. Now, this form will take complete advantage of the temperature regulation inside his body. Increasing and decreasing the air inside him, Luffy can ascend and descend, almost like a hot air balloon. So he will potentially be able to fly and be incredibly agile whilst in the air. I believe this form will be used in order to deal with Kaido's dragon form. KITEMAN will also be able to increase the temperature of the air inside him to much higher temperatures compared to GIANTMAN, as there is less air inside him. And as Luffy is made from rubber, he will be able to withstand the extreme temperatures. But in summary, this form will only be used to fend off sky-based fighters. So now we've discussed gear 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th, but that does leave one last gear, and that would be reverse gear. Many are speculating that this could be Luffy's awakening form, but that's for another video. Thanks for watching, make sure you leave a comment on your thoughts on gear 5th.